You know the vibes. Welcome to an emergency episode of the Hoop Genius podcast brought to you by NBA 2K24. And you know, 2K24 is the best place to make trades and see how players will fit on different teams. But we got a real life trade that's just happened. Myself, Momunsi, alongside me, is always the three-time NBA champion, BJ Armstrong, but also the former New York Knicks general manager, Mr. Scott Perry, in the house to discuss a huge deal that's just gone down in the NBA. Scott's very own New York Knicks have finally made the move. Bear in mind, Scott, I think a few weeks ago when you were on the show, I asked for your opinion when I gave you my idea for an OG Anunoby trade to the New York Knicks. And it's happened. So maybe my GM skills are sharpening just a little bit here or there. First of all, it's fascinating that the New York Knicks are currently suing the Toronto Raptors for one of their staff members leaking information.
Yeah. Mo, why are you going there, Mo?
I'm just telling the people the information. Okay. So they're currently in a court battle, but they are still making trades with each other. So for the full context of the trade, OG Anunoby, Precious Achiuwa, and Malachi Flynn are headed to the Big Apple, New York City. And in return, RJ Barrett, the Canadian, making his homecoming, along with Immanuel Quickley and a second-round pick via the Detroit Pistons, who we're going to talk about on Monday's episode. Oh, you guys want to hear that because these two are Detroit natives. It gets a little spicy. But we're talking about this trade right now. That's the deal. Scott, right off the bat, I need to get your first instant live reaction.
Well, Mo, when you make a trade in this league, you obviously want to leave the table feeling pretty good about it. And I think in this scenario, I think both teams are going to leave the table feeling good about the trade that was made. First, from the Knicks standpoint, they get a small forward size. You've heard me say early in the year, and I'm a real big fan of RJ Barrett, but I always thought he would be better at the two guard position. And they've been playing him at the three and even some backup four. OG brings more size to that position, and he brings a better defensive component. And he's a guy that, in terms of just catching and shooting and spotting up, will fit well with Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson, who are more ball-dominant players. And then also look for, like, kind of the silent part of the deal from the Knicks part. This Precious Achiuwa that they picked up, who obviously won't be talked a lot about in the deal, but I think he can be very helpful to this team. He brings some size, aggression on the front line, the physicality that will fit the New York style of play, some depth there with Mitchell Robinson being out now. Mm-hmm. And I watched New York last night play Julius Randle a little bit at the five. You could play those two guys together.
Yeah, because Precious can space the floor. He knocks down a couple threes every game.
Exactly. So you add a little more size to your second unit. And again, and some skill with him and level of physicality, again, that fits on how this team wants to play. And Malachi Flynn is a solid pro, but I don't know that he will crack the rotation much there in New York unless there's an injury. On the Toronto side, and if you're Masai Ujiri, you're feeling good. You're bringing RJ Barrett back, who's been a very successful NBA player. He's local. He's from there. So he's going to be a big draw in your building. He's going to be happy to be playing there and representing his hometown Raptors. And they know they're getting a guy that's going to show up, compete each and every night. And I think he'll get a chance to grow there and be a nice compliment to a guy like Scotty Barnes. And then picking up Immanuel Quickley, I think is huge for them. It sends a signal to me that they probably going to be interested in re-signing him since, Emmanuel's a restricted free agent this summer. He's proven already in his short time in the league, he's one of the best in the league at coming off the bench and scoring a lot of points in a hurry. I don't know if they're going to continue having him in that role, or are they going to look to him even in a starting capacity? I mean, that's something they'll figure out there, because when he did start in New York, he produced well and helped the Knicks win ball games. So I really like the two that they picked up, and I think they fit into how Toronto wants to play. Again, they're another team that wants to play hard, compete at a high level. So walking away from this trade, I think both teams have to feel pretty good, and they pick up a second-round pick, I believe, which is Detroit's second, which will be obviously a very good pick in this upcoming draft. So you got to be feeling pretty good if you're Toronto, and obviously they made the determination that it was time to move on from OG. So now the fun starts.
Yeah.
When you start playing the games and see what I'm saying. Does it work for both sides, or does it lean one way or the other? We're gonna see in the days, weeks, and months ahead.
It's looking to me like a win-win, obviously without seeing them play a single game. But BJ, what was your instant reaction to this trade?
Well, my instant reaction is when I saw the trade, I said, okay, if I looked at the roster.
Wait. Can I tell the people, BJ's instant reaction is, Mo, how are you seeing all of this? And I had to explain to BJ, Twitter is where you can see the news, because we all know it. BJ's technophobic. He don't like the technology.
Yeah,
that was BJ's instant reaction when I called him and said they just traded OG.
I want to focus in. I like to focus in. You know, as you guys say, I'm locked in. I'm locked in.
Yeah,
you know
So
I mean?
not your instant reaction. Once you found out the details, your reaction to that.
So again, when I first heard it, I said, okay, what does this do to your team dynamic? Because you know your team takes on a personality. And when I heard it from the Knicks, my instant reaction was, oh, this is going to put more workload on Jalen Brunson, because Immanuel Quickley, at certain points, not only during the regular season but in the playoffs, he really, at any given moment, he could carry a quarter, he could carry a half, he could carry a game. And when you say Jalen Brunson as your primary ball handler, Quickley has evolved into a very reliable ball handler and plays downhill in his own specific way. And what I really loved about him, Quickley, and I loved watching him, is he knows how to play off of the primary scores. And he's done that consistently there in New York off of Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle. So I thought, okay, Jalen Brunson now, with the absence of Quickley, that's going to increase his workload, because I don't see another player on their roster as a guard who can play downhill in that capacity with that level of speed and quickness. That was my immediate reaction, because Scott and I, we discuss this all the time. Mo hears me say this all the time. I got to take advantage of the way the game is played and the rules of the game, and you got to play downhill. So when they lost Quickley, I said, oh, wow, who else on the roster can do that other than Brunson? Okay, so that was my immediate reaction. Second, I always prefer players who can play in multiple positions. And Scott was there during the time. People forget, RJ Barrett, at one point, I'm not saying he could do it full time, he was playing the lead guard position at one point for the New York Knicks.
In his rookie year.
Okay. He is a terrific ball handler at the one. He's playing now the three. And I think everyone here, and I don't know, and I'll let Scott say it for himself, but I think RJ Barrett is without question, he is a terrific two in this league with his size, his strength, his ability to catch and shoot. I think he can post. He has a post-up game. And I just think now this gives him an opportunity to explore who he really could be, because he's had to defer. Now, because he's a terrific kid, I think he was willing to defer. He's a winning player. He's a winning player. I don't care how you slice it or dice it. He's a winning player in the NBA. And I think now, playing alongside someone like Scotty Barnes, I think this young man has a chance there to really settle in and say, this is who he's really going to be. Yeah. Now, OG, I'm a fan of. I'm a fan of OG. Okay? I'm a fan of OG. However, I'm going to be fascinated to see how he and Randle are going to complement one another as far as the way Randle plays. Because Randle, in my opinion, he has to not only be a 4, he can play small 5, but Randall at his point in his career, he plays some 3. You know, so I'm interested to see how this is all going to work. The Precious, I'm a fan of Precious, so I think he will figure that out. I think that was probably done because of the absence of Mitchell Robinson, who I think they're going to miss.
No question.
I think they're going to miss him. But the big thing for me is this increases the workload of their best player. And one of my things as I'm building a team, okay, this is just my opinion. I don't know this. We're going to have to play it and watch it play itself out. Is you always want to enhance what your best player does. And when I say your best player, Jalen Brunson to me is clearly, clearly right now. But I think this increases his chances. And if for some reason he has to miss a game or something like that, to me, Quickley was just right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Having said that, now you've still got Quentin Grimes, you've still got Miles McBride, and now you have Malachi Flynn. So I think between the 3 of those guys, you have options there, even if Jalen Brunson misses time. But I think what could be underrated here is adding Achiuwa. You could potentially then put Hartenstein back in his role coming off the bench, because him and Grimes coming off the bench together was a great combination whenever they played coming off the bench together. And I think that Scott could probably speak to this a lot better than I can. But I think that's a great.
I mentioned,
when
we talked about Mitchell a week ago or so, when he went down and we knew he was going to be out for the year, I felt that you wanted to try your best to keep Hartenstein with that second unit where he had the most success. It's different being a starter. I mean, he's going to play hard, he's going to compete, going to try his best, but he's best in that role as a backup, most valuable to that team moving forward as a backup, especially if they have designs on moving forward. But I'm going to go back to the point that BJ made. Like, Quickley will be missed.
Yes.
There's no question about it, because I mean, again, I sat over there a number of games when I was there and watched him come off the bench and score 30 points in 20 plus minutes, and change the momentum.
And I'm sure that warmed your heart, Scott. I'm sure that warmed your heart.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And because he was shooting something from the parking lot as well. So yeah. But so I don't, in Grimes, he's not that type of player. He's not that he's a good solid player. He can, spot up, hit open threes. He's gonna give you a sound defensive effort. But he's not that spark that Quickley is, and he's not that creator off the dribble that Quickley is. And Quickley has gotten better every year. And as I watch him this year, he's improved from last year. His ability when he gets in there, not only to shoot those floaters and stuff, but now he's capable of finding people.
He's making reads now, Scott. I mean, he's making reads.
Yes.
I think,
and so that's why Mo, again, no disrespect to Malachi Flynn, no disrespect to Miles McBride, who was drafted. We were drafted when I was there as well, but they're not the offensive juggernaut. So to BJ's point, if you lose Jalen Brunson, and knock on wood, that will never happen, but if he has to miss 5 to 10 games, and he missed a stretch last year, I would be concerned who could pick up that load during that time without them falling off.
But that's the beauty of the NBA, because as you said, he's a restricted free agent. Would they have been able to pay Immanuel Quickley if they kept him, and other teams can outbid them? And that's what makes the salary cap so fascinating. But that's what stands out to be, if we look at the Toronto perspective of this trade, Scotty Barnes and Immanuel Quickley. I believe if I'm Toronto, I'm putting him in the starting line. I'm not having him as a sixth man. And I'm developing that 2-man game, because I think that can be so dangerous with Scotty Barnes' evolution of his game this season, what we've seen, how much he's improved since last year, especially with his outside shooting, but also Immanuel Quickley just being so fast. Now, when you have a 2-man action with those 2 guys, how are teams going to possibly defend that? And they're both still young enough. They've got years to build that chemistry together. I love this move for the Toronto Raptors. Because I think that as we talk about partnerships in the NBA and duos and dynamic duos, I think 5 years from now, that's going to be a dynamic duo in the NBA everyone's looking at, and they get real scared.
But and like BJ mentioned, because I wouldn't discount RJ Barrett going there either. What you have, and I don't know Scotty Barnes as well, but I know those other two guys, and they are getting two of the best workers that you're going to find in this league. These guys are committed to the game. They want to be great players. They're going to be in that gym to get better, to figure out, to your point. And they both are going to see this as an opportunity to kind of spread their wings a little bit. Immanuel Quickley, for sure, like yourself, can he move into that starting role? I know he's always, wanted to have a chance and a shot at doing that. So now he probably is going to get that there. RJ Barrett was always looking for a greater role, and so now he's going to get that as well. And then, Scotty is establishing himself there in Toronto as one of the game's better players. So I'm excited to watch that group moving forward and really see how those guys come together. But they're high character guys, so I think my guess is they're going to try to figure that out quickly. They're going to come in there again with all those attributes I talked about, but with enough humility that they're going to be to figure out how they're going to fit in and try to make this thing work right out the gate.
Now, when you look at this trade here, again, this is just my immediate reaction. I was saying 2 weeks from now, we're all going to come back, and I know, Mo, you're going to do it for sure. You're going to come back with the numbers. Who's averaging what? Okay. Again, I think OG is a terrific player. However, when you go to different teams, you have to play a different role. My immediate reaction is to say OG probably will not have the same opportunities and play the same way that he played in Toronto. However, I think RJ Barrett will be able to flourish. I think Quickley will flourish. I don't know how that's going to play out in New York in the brand of basketball that they're going to play. But I think these other guys will have more opportunities to just go out there and play and play more freely, so forth and so on. Whereas if the Knicks lose 2 or 3 games, that's a different animal.
Yep.
So I think the stress, especially if they lose their first 2 or 3 games, or it looks like it, you're going to see the pressure. And I don't know if these players from Toronto know what they're really getting into. Like, New York is just a different, you can't describe it until you're there. Maybe Scott can talk about it. The press, I'm sure now they're someone, and according to New York's media, someone's got fleeced already. They're going to say whatever they're going to say. So I think those young men that are going to Toronto, there's going to be some sigh of relief for them. And I will say this. You play different when you want to be someplace. I got to imagine that RJ Barrett is probably over the top.
Yeah, we can't forget he was the 3rd overall pick in the draft. Like,
yes,
I
can't imagine
his reception, what his reception is going to be
going home.
I can't imagine what that has to be. So I expect him to be playing with the renowned. I mean, he was already a professional, in my opinion. And this young man is a true professional. I mean, I thought he handled New York beautifully. I got to imagine now there's going to be a little something extra for him. And I expect him to give a little extra. And he was already giving it extra. So I'm fascinated to see 2 weeks from today to where this is going to go. And
go ahead, Mo.
Go ahead. I got to say, the real winner of this trade, do you know who the real winner of this trade is?
Oh, gosh.
Is your Detroit Pistons. Because tonight they play the Toronto Raptors.
I knew that was coming to interrupt this.
And they ain't going to have OG or Flynn or Achiuwa, and RJ and Quickley aren't going to be in Toronto yet for tonight's game. So they have to win and end the streak. But that's for Monday's episode. I got to call Masai. I'm calling Masai tonight. I'm calling Masai to see if BJ made him do this trade today of all days. So his Pistons will get 1 win.
Oh boy, that's but BJ, one point that he brought up about the trade that it's going to be that comes with OG now. It's all about winning. See,
Yes.
you see, RJ was very well liked in New York by the fan base, as was Quickley. And okay, and those guys helped the team get to the second round last year. So you make a trade like this, so you give up two integral pieces of your team, and that's what you do when you try to you in an effort to try to improve your team. But now your team definitely has to improve. You know, finishing in the same space as you did last year is not going to be acceptable.
Yep, and the
That's
Celtics are still there. The
from
Bucks are now
basic, yes,
better. The Sixers are better.
exactly. So you're gonna have to, you know, that's the pressure that comes with this. So now this group is gonna have to, without Mitchell Robinson, which is gonna be tough. And I think I can't stress that enough, because just watching him play without Mitchell, he cleans up so much defensively. My guess is they're hoping that OG is gonna be able to defend on a nightly basis at the small forward position and not, you know, maybe allow as much penetration and put as much stress on the back line. I'm sure that's their hope with him entering into the lineup. But it's going to be fascinating to watch. And to BJ's point, it's going to be fascinating to see how he handles that. Because it's one thing to come in there and play as a visitor. It's another thing to play 41 home games and whatever playoff games you play in there in front of that crowd. You know, as much as they love you and support you, there is a pressure that comes with that.
Well, I can tell you from a source that Immanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett right now look very excited to be going to Toronto. That's all I can say on that.
That's all you can say. You got sources, Mo. You got sources.
Hey, come on, man. Come on, man.
You got sources, Mo.
I ain't got sources in the front office like Woj. My sources in the streets, but the guys seem very happy for that move, very excited for the new opportunity. But one thing that's interesting now is, you know, we saw reports over the course of the offseason and earlier the season that Toronto wanted 5 first-round picks for OG and Masai had a huge asking price. New York have managed to pull this off without giving up even 1 first-round pick, which now the knock-on effect is going to be teams are going to be calling Toronto right now about Pascal Siakam, Gary Trent Jr., Jakob Poeltl, and all these other guys, as Toronto is now pivoting to a direction where they're building around Scottie Barnes, who's obviously a younger player in the NBA. He's only 22, and then they've just gone and picked up RJ, who's 23, and Immanuel Quickley, who's 24. So there's going to be more moves, in my opinion, for the Raptors before this trade deadline. So it's going to be interesting to see how it pans out. My question to you is, now with OG in the lineup, how far do you think, Scott, this Knicks team goes this season? Because OG's his contract expires at the end of the season, so he's got to sign that extension in New York, and if he gets a better offer elsewhere, it could be all for nothing.
Well, you would think again that they're going to be trying to figure out how to keep this guy when you give up that much, because again, you're giving up a guy who's been a 4-year starter and a guy who was right there for 6th man of the year last year, who could potentially start for other basketball teams. So you gave up 2 of your top 6 players to get him. So you're gonna need that to work. I don't know OG that well. I think I met him during the draft process, actually when I was in Sacramento. So not knowing his personality, I think parts of his game have the potential to fit, but what his personality is like and how he's going to fit with the group, and again, fit in that dynamic that we talked about, which is New York, I'm not sure. And so I don't want to.
I know OG a little bit.
I don't want. I'm not going to. I can't put a floor or a ceiling on it, but I don't know that, as I analyze the move, does it say to me, oh, well, now the Knicks have made the move that's going to put them in the top 2 or 3 in the Eastern Conference? That has to be proven. Hopefully for them, it does. It happens that way. It will need to happen that way. But I got at least watch them and for a little while to see, because I'm not, all the way sure. And again, not having Mitchell back there, so not seeing the full group together.
I mean,
it's a little incomplete,
I know OG a little bit, and he doesn't strike me as someone who will be fazed by the media side of New York and the attention and all of that. He's about his business. He's about playing his game. I don't think he's going to pay too much attention to what the media and stuff is saying. In terms of how he fits in the locker room, I can't speak to that. But the thing about not having Mitchell Robinson is you're adding OG, who, in my opinion, is a significant defensive upgrade on RJ Barrett. When you don't have that same level of rim protection behind you with Mitchell Robinson being out, it is a good idea to strengthen the perimeter defense, to have less guys being able to get inside and attack at the hoop. So not only am I excited for this, I'm excited for next season when you've got Mitchell Robinson and OG Anunoby on the court together. That's going to be defensive nightmares for the other teams to try and attack at. So,
well, but you're still small at the backcourt. You know, you're small with Jalen and DiVincenzo, who's a starter right now.
Yep.
But no, it's going to be interesting to see how it comes and how quickly he can assimilate play for a new coach, because this is going to be his first time playing for Tibbs as well too.
Let me ask you this, Scott. You know, every team takes on an identity. And as an executive, as a coach, Quickley was kind of like a blanket for a lot of coaches. I think he's a blanket because he's really a starter. Like you had Quentin Grimes there, but Quickley was the player.
Was a better player.
Okay. But here's the thing, Mo and Scott, they've taken 3 starters from a team that advanced to the second round now, and they've changed those. So you have Mitchell Robinson out, RJ Barrett is out, and Quickley more or less was the starter as a 6th man last year.
Yeah, in terms of minutes played.
Yes. So I think this is a significant thing that's going to take time. Like, and as you know, Scott, as we all know, you know, New York doesn't. They're unforgiving on saying we need, like Moses said, next year. Like, this doesn't happen.
Next year, like nobody's talking about next year in New York.
No, if this thing gets off to like a 3-game losing streak or a 5-game losing streak, this is New York, man.
Yeah, OG ain't gonna be worried. OG ain't gonna worry about none of that.
OG may not be worried. Let me tell you, somebody else is gonna be worried.
Exactly.
That ain't my problem.
Okay?
Exactly. I just want to see my brother doing well.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, I just don't know how this plays itself out, because when you're taking 3, in my opinion, significant players. I mean, this kid Quickley, I remember it was a 1 game last year, Scott, I was watching against the Celtics. The guy was just dancing all over the place.
He had close to 40 points.
Don't remind me.
I don't
want to hear that. Any other game we can talk about.
I mean, what he did last year in the playoffs and some of the games.
And he could have been the 6th man of the year last year as well.
He could have been. I mean, this young man has really, like, you just don't lose players like that. RJ Barrett, okay. I mean, and then you losing the big fella, Mitchell, to me is just significant, okay? Because rim protection is one of those things. So when you start tinkering with your, I mean, that's a core group. I think this is going to take time. Now, you get training camp, you figure it out, you get a couple preseason games. Okay, let's go. They're doing this like literally on the fly. I mean, there isn't any practice time, as you know, during the regular season. You're just going to have to be playing. You know, Randall and what's his name, clearly they're going to take the majority of the shots. So I just think this is going to be a more significant transition than possibly the Toronto Raptors. Now, I haven't looked at the schedule and all those things, but I'm just concerned for New York, because New York this is a different place. And Scott, maybe, am I overreacting to this, Scott, or is this like a real thing? Like, I don't see patience in New York saying like, hey guys, let's wait till next year when everybody's healthy and coming back.
No, New York is not going to be the most patient place. They're expecting to win. Look, people were excited about last year making it to the second round, and and it's natural, it's human nature, whether it's in New York or anywhere else. People are expecting ascension from this group because look, everybody's under 30. I think Julius may just have turned 30, but Jalen Brunson is under 30, who is playing terrific. And obviously the 2 guys that just got traded, 23 and 24, Mitchell Robinson's 26. So there's that natural expectation that this, group will keep getting better. So OG is, he's gonna have to come in and deliver the goods. Do I like his talent and like his size and ability? Yeah, absolutely. So, but we got to see how it all fits. And that is always that's the mystery of any trade, though. Let me just finish that point. Because you can make these trades and everything looks a certain way on paper. But then once those personalities come in the building and it starts to take shape, you got to kind of wait and see what happens. So
you also have to think, like, looking at the playoffs, you're going to face Boston. You now got OG, a guy who can go and guard Jason Tatum on single coverage. Yep. You're going to go against the Miami Heat. You've got a guy who can go and guard Jimmy Butler on single coverage. You got playing the Bucks. You need to stop Dame Lillard for a few possessions. You can say, go OG, go get him. So I think looking at it through that lens, it could be a great move for the Knicks. But let us know on the Discord. You can join in the link of this podcast. Let us know, get in there, join the community, and let us know your thoughts on this trade for the Knicks and the Toronto Raptors. In my opinion, I'm calling it a win-win for both teams. I can see RJ Barrett right now, how happy he is to be headed back home to Toronto. So I'm expecting big things for his development. Immanuel Quickley playing with Scottie Barnes, I think that's a great combination. And then for the Knicks, they've upgraded on their defense, even though they are giving up a few pieces. I'm excited for this for both sides. Any closing thoughts from you both?
And we talked a little bit about it earlier, but I think Precious Achiuwa, got to watch what his contribution is, because he could be the unsung hero of this trade for the Knicks, just in what the versatility, again, the guy that could stretch the floor a little bit, but physical athlete, add some athleticism to the front line, and again, it will allow them some flexibility.
And maybe get Hartenstein coming back off the bench.
Back off the bench. Yeah, exactly. So let's watch what that does as well. I know OG will be the focus, but let's watch that part too.
I got one question for the group here. So what are our expectations of both of these organizations now moving forward?
Well, I expect the Raptors to then trade away some of their veterans and go.
No, I mean as far as what this trade will do
in terms of this season on the court.
For this season, yes.
Well, that's tough because, as we said, you've got the Celtics, you've got the Bucks, you've got the Sixers, you've got the Heat. That's 4 very good teams. That's going to be tough to get, to that second round. But I know the Knicks' expectation is to at least get to the second round. And I think in their head, they feel like they'll be able to progress from that, especially if they're matched up in the second round with a Miami. In my opinion, if you took RJ Barrett and swapped him with OG Anunoby in last year's series, that could have gone differently. What do you think?
I don't know about. I'm not going to revisit last year's series, but I do expect that my expectation is, at minimum, the Knicks have to get back into that second round, into at least a game 7 in that second round. They got to be pushing the envelope, getting to the conference finals. In my opinion, when you make this type of move, that's what the move says to me. So that's what I'm going to be waiting to see. You definitely can't take a step back. We said that, a first round exit will not be acceptable from the group. Yeah, it's not going to be acceptable. And I don't think that not only from the fan base, but it shouldn't be acceptable internally either. So when you make this type of move, so we're going to see. And then from Toronto's perspective, I think now that let's watch this group and what they're saying. Okay, this is a young group that we can build with moving forward. And what will we need to add to them? And so they're going to use the rest of this season to assess that. And they're going to be competing their tails off, I'm sure, to get to the play-in stage at least, and see what they have. And but I'm excited for them because I think they've got again a good young group of players right there, and they add some additional size up front. A player up front to go with that group. They could become a really good basketball team.
I'm excited to see it. And we're going to bring you all the latest and the best news from around the NBA. So make sure you subscribe to the Hoop Genius podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast from. Scott, thank you for joining us once again. BJ, you're going to be here all week rocking with us as always. Appreciate you as well. And most importantly, until next time, get buckets.